Welcome back. I'm Kari Wilson, Communications Director here at Two Cities, joined as always by Pastor Kyle, and we have the honor of having Matthew McDill with us today, one of our elders. Excited to have you here, and we're going to talk about lots of things, how we handle Christmas as families, everything from Santa Claus to gifts to handling family expectations, all the fun conversations.
Going to be a lot of fun. And Dr. McDill, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And Dr. McDill Matthew McDill, not only an elder of our church, but a pastor for 25 years before that, a son of a pastor and seminary professor of preaching.
That's right.
But maybe most importantly for our conversation today, a dad of 9 kids. I think that's close to the record in our church.
Yeah, is that right?
I was at a church, when I was at FBC Durham, we had a lot of people that had, for some reason, maybe you'd say the Lord stopped them or they stopped themselves, but at 7 kids. So you went past the biblical number of 7, meaning completion and perfection, and went on to have your own baseball team.
That's right. It's an absolute party all the time.
I love it. We'll talk about that today.
Well, yeah, and I mean, really, you guys are here today not because you're pastors and elders of our church, but because you're dads. That's the reason you're here today. And you have kids, and you've walked through this year in and year out. How are we going to handle Christmas and the holidays? What are we going to tell our families about what this time of year is about and how we celebrate and approach it as a family?
Yes.
And as a first-time expecting mom, I'm super excited to hear from you guys. I mean, Great. I'm already jumping ahead of the game a little bit. I won some Good Kind Advent blocks in a raffle recently. They're up on my mantle, and Ben and I are doing the family devotion together. It's like, I don't think the baby can understand, but we're doing it, you know? So I'm excited about this, and I'm sure there's many other young parents that are trying to navigate this. They're going to have a lot to gain. And just want to acknowledge, too, that it's not one size fit all. The examples you guys are going to give today may not be the right fit for somebody else's family, but we learn from others' experiences, and exciting to hear some of your wisdom today. So, well, we'll just jump in. Give us a snapshot of your family, Matthew. Like, we know 9 kids, but what are our age ranges here?
So 5 are out of the house. The oldest 2 are married. The next 2 are recently engaged.
Both of them?
Sweet.
Yeah.
Come on.
So when we had everybody over recently, right after Thanksgiving, we even had the 2 new fiancés. So everyone was there. It was really fun.
New experiences.
Yeah, and then...
So you guys can't even really have extended family over because your original family, when they get married, it's like, sorry, guys, it's it. Yeah.
We actually had to add an extra table in the dining room just for our family.
Wow.
Who sits at the kids' table then? Is it a kids' table?
Well, we added it kind of T-ways to the dining table just so we could all be together.
I love it.
It worked
That's
great.
Sweet.
And then...
So that leaves 4 in the house.
4 in the house, that's right.
Great.
Ages?
25 is the oldest, 11 is the youngest. Every 2 years.
So how
Don't
long...
make me say all their ages.
How long have you been a dad? So how old's your oldest kid?
25.
Okay.
25?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a lot of
You've been a dad
lifetime
twice as long as I've been a
parent.
dad. So I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions today as well. So. And you have 3 times as many kids as me.
Kyle, will you just share a little bit? I know a lot of people know a little bit about your family, but just your family dynamics, your kids.
Yeah, married to Margie, been married for over 14 years, and we had kids fairly early. So I've got a 12-year-old. She's almost 13. So I'm about to have I have a tweenager, I think they're called, or whatever, and now I'm about to have a teenager.
Was she 3 or 4 when you moved
4
here?
when we planted. So she'll be 13 in January. I've got a son who will be 11 in January. So I've got 2 in the double digits, early double digits. And then I've got Elon, who is the exact same age as our church. So he was. So it's one of those things where you look back. I don't know if you feel this with your life. You look back on things you did when you were a little bit younger, and you're like, how did I do that? And we moved. Margie and I, she was super duper pregnant with Elon. When we moved to Winston, we're looking for a building to plant in, and we're trying to fix up an old house in Ardmore while she was, 7-8 months pregnant. We actually moved here May of 2016, moved to Winston. Elon was born June 13th of that same year. And so he's, interestingly enough, I don't know, I've shared this on the podcast. We were looking the other day, someone told me this. Elon, this is like probably a month ago, he just hit 500 check-ins in the kids ministry, which is the most check-ins any kid has ever had.
I bet.
And so that's not because I've got the oldest kid, it's just because he's been at everything the whole time. So, and by the way, I've got less kids so I can get into this. He is named after not Elon Musk, although Elon Musk is an impressive man. He is named after Elon is the Hebrew word for oak tree. And
Cool.
Elon, when I went to Elon University, when you start out there, they give you a little sapling. So maybe there's a parenting analogy. Like literally every I'm sorry, I said it wrong. When you're a freshman, they give you an acorn.
Oh.
When you leave, they give you a little sapling. Every grad, like a little
That's
tree.
so special.
Oh yeah. So to me, Elon was I didn't come to Christ there. I grew a lot there. And I always joke, Elon is both biblical and billionaire. So I feel it means both. So I feel like he's set. So I'm
Well,
excited.
little man has a big place in my heart because I feel like getting to see him grow up over the
Yes.
past several years, like being in your community group, babysitting.
Yeah.
He once told Ben that he couldn't marry me because he wanted to marry me
it's so
when
funny.
we were in the process. So
Well, I'll tell you one other
special
interesting
boy.
thing, and I don't know if you feel this. Margaret and I were talking about this the other day, that she was telling me something that she was read somewhere, that the age of your family is the age of your oldest kid. Like, in other words, we were talking the other day just about how our family feels so different than if we just had an 8-year-old or if we had an 8, 6, and 4-year-old.
Right.
Because our oldest is almost 13, our family feels so different. It feels like, well, we're doing youth group and we're doing middle
It's a
school
completely different
sports and we're doing
stage.
braces and all of these. We're doing lots of questions about technology as a family,
What is
which
that?
then brings the rest of the family up with it because then William and Elon asking, you get it.
What does that look like for you? Because you have a wide range of ages as well.
I was thinking that.
It's kind of interesting because when kids leave, you still have that effect of, well, we have married kids and we don't have any grandkids yet. And they're doing, adult things. But then you end up having a new family at home.
Yeah.
So now my oldest is 16. And so once Nathaniel moved out, it was a resettling of the 4 we have, with our oldest being 16. And it's really interesting that now there's a new oldest kid.
That makes sense.
And
so
things
interesting.
settle out
Yeah.
in a new way. And it's like a new little nuclear.
Do you get what I'm
family.
saying? With your oldest kid in the home is kind of how your family feels. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure, like, as you guys have, like, as your kids have aged, as some have transitioned out of the home, like Christmas and holidays and how you do that have probably changed a lot over the years as well. So looking forward to talking about that. But let's dive in. I'm curious. If you don't have anything, it's fine. But any funny family memories or, like, unexpected things that have happened with your kids or with yourself growing up that you can think about?
The biggest thing, as you asked that popped in my head, was like the biggest surprise I ever had at Christmas was I was in 6th grade. So I don't know what year this was. But it was, late 90s, I guess. And Nintendo 64 had just come out. And I
had one of
cannot
those.
explain to you how big of a deal Nintendo 64 was. Now, this is pre-Amazon, pre-online buying.
Took time.
And it was just one of those things. It was like what Tickle Me Elmo was one year. It's like, you can't get it. You can't find it. And I remember my mom saying, hey, pulling me aside, hey, I just want you to know I tried. I just couldn't get you the Nintendo 64. And I remember being so sad.
How
and
old
at
were
the
you
time,
again?
my brother, I was in 6th grade.
Okay.
About to be, I was in 6th grade, I think I was. And so we can get into this, but, was no longer believing in Santa.
Yeah.
But still was like, but my parents like to have surprise and all these things. But they were big and give us a Christmas list and have one big item and we'll try to get it. Anyway, long story short, she completely had me tricked, and I ended up getting Nintendo
job,
64. She found it at Toys R Us, which I don't even think exists
No,
anymore.
it doesn't, I don't think.
She found it at Toys R Us. There was one left. She told the whole story, and there's still pictures from that Christmas morning of me and my brother probably smiling involuntarily
sweet.
as
That's right.
big as you could smile because we did not think we were going to get it, and it was like Willy Wonka's golden ticket. It was like I cannot
great.
believe we're headed to a party. This is amazing.
That's so cool. Have you had moments like that, Kyle, with your kids where you just like get to see that kind of same joy?
Yeah, we can
And
get
then
into this, but I mean,
reciprocated.
we love to surprise our kids. So a couple years ago, we were like on Christmas morning, we were like, hey guys, we're big on, we can talk about this philosophically, but we're real big on experiences over physical gifts. Although we're not against physical gifts, we try to get some of those. But we had booked a Carnival cruise, which is not the nicest type of cruise, but we had booked a 5-day Carnival cruise. They had never been on a cruise. It was anyway. I think it started on like the 27th.
You get some good rates on those
December.
cruises.
Yeah. So it started like 2 or 3 days after Christmas. So what was so fun about that was, hey guys, we're going on a cruise. And we leave tomorrow, and
And
that was a
Margie's
cool
really
moment.
big about
Yeah.
surprising your kids with trips.
That's
I think
right.
it's so fun.
So I think there's been a couple moments Because usually we don't have a big gift they weren't expecting. And usually they're not asking, at least at this age, for something that's so incredible they don't think we're going to be able to find. So I think that's the first memory that comes to mind of like surprising them with an experience that they were like, man, this is really, really special.
Matthew, do you have any funny stories or just like memorable ones as you think back?
Yeah, I just thought of the time we were pretty young as a family, maybe had a couple little kids, little minivan. I wasn't too experienced yet on tying the Christmas tree on top of the van.
Oh no.
That's a foreshadowing moment right there.
So we just got on the highway. I was just trucking it, wasn't thinking about it. And I heard something and looked back and it just flew right off, hit the highway and shattered.
So did not survive.
Thankfully didn't hurt anyone.
It didn't hurt anybody, and the cars, kind of stopped, and it ended up going off the road. But we just thought, well, turn around and go back and get another tree.
So you did get another tree.
Yeah. We just went back and got
Those things aren't cheap.
There's nothing to do,
Yeah.
Wow.
That's something that can be in one of those like Christmas movies,
that's like National Lampoon's kind of thing. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's so funny. Well, as you think back on your childhood, like how did your families handle celebrating Christmas?
Well, one of my memories is going to Grandma Ruby's house on Christmas Eve. And as a kid, it's just like this misty memory of magical, sparkly, good tasting, it was just the best time. Lots of great food. Presents were there. And I remember the fact that when we opened presents, we would always go around one by one and everybody watched.
We do that as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's something that's carried over.
Yeah.
That's good.
And I thought, doesn't everybody do that? And then I realized some places
they rip them up.
it's
It's
like,
over in 5 minutes.
go.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
Free for all.
Yeah. So we really take our time.
That's sweet.
That's something that we still do.
Yeah.
And going to Grandma's house on Christmas Eve is
Sweet.
Now it's a new grandma, but that's what we do. And so that was a really special memory of going to Grandma's house and that little carryover.
That's sweet. So a lot of family time, sweet memories of that.
And I would say that. I would say the thing that our family loves the most is just time together.
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
It's just we play games, we play ping pong,
That's
we
sweet.
sit around and we drink pots and pots and pots of coffee and just talk and argue and have a good time.
That's great.
And we do the presents, but we just get to be together.
I love
That's
it.
And
awesome.
that's what we love the most.
That's really cool. Kyle, what about you? Like growing up, what did Christmas look like? with
Oh,
your
it was
family?
very special. So it's just me and my brother Mitch. He's 3 years younger. My parents did a great job. I grew up in a great home, and Christmas was a big deal in my house. Birthdays were not as big of a deal. Not to go down that.
They weren't
road,
for us
but,
either.
but like we had birthday parties and we got a gift or something. But like Christmas was a big deal. We always went the night before to go see a movie. So we would whatever was in the theaters. I can remember when you're going to see Street Fighter with Jean-Claude Van
What a
Damme.
strange
We're
movie to watch.
Yeah,
on
they
a
weren't.
holiday.
Sorry, they didn't have to be Christmas movies. It was just like back
whatever
then. It was.
there
This
was,
is before Netflix.
Yeah.
Like to go to the movie theater was like a big deal. We'd go to the movie theater as a family. We'd
That's
come
fun.
back. Me and my brother, we would always build a fort in my room. I mean, we did this probably embarrassingly until I was probably in middle school at least. I mean, even when all some of the mystery of Christmas was over, but we'd always sleep in the same room. We'd always, at least it felt like, we'd stayed up forever. No, and then my mom had, it's funny, I was just telling Margie about this today. I don't remember all the details. We had this hanging, I don't even know what it was. It hung and it had a little bear on it. So it was like the 25 days of Christmas and the bear,
countdown?
this little chocolate bear or whatever it was, and it would go into different rooms. And you just, it's in the kitchen now and it's heading toward Christmas. And just
that's
that
sweet.
kind of anticipation. So my
Like
parents
the
did a
elf on the
great
shelf, but
yeah. Well,
bear.
that again, we can talk about that, but that did not exist.
Right.
So anyway, in general, and then my mom had a ton of just baked goods. We just that was there was lots of desserts, lots of fun time, and then that whole season is just a reminder to me of friends sleeping over. It's Christmas break, New Year is coming, 2 weeks off from school. It's just it's everything a kid loves.
Yep, that's great.
I can remember back when Toys R Us was a thing, and we still believed in Santa Claus, going to Toys R Us. And we would make our Christmas list for Santa. So we'd go as a family and we'd see things. And it was an experience together to make our list or whatever. And even sitting out cookies, for Santa Claus and reindeer food and things. So we did Santa. We did Santa growing up. I'm curious if you guys did Santa growing up. What did that look like?
Do you want to start?
So how do I say this? We did Santa, and this is pretty similar to what we do now in the sense of we have Santa decorations, we talk about Santa, it's just fun. But it was never serious.
Yeah.
Like my parents never tried to convince us. It was just, oh yeah, Santa brought those presents,
Yeah.
And when we would say things like, is Santa real? They would be like, well, what do you think? There was never kind of,
Yeah.
and so I remember one time it was shocking to me because I had already realized that there wasn't a Santa.
Yeah.
But I had never talked about it with my parents. So we were all pretending that I knew or that I didn't know,
Yeah.
And so I got a bike, like a BMX bike one year. And that was the big one. I was so excited. So Dad was going on a jog. I was riding my bike. And he turned and said, it took me all night to put that thing together. I was like, you what?
He finally let you in on
he
the fact that you knew too.
Yeah, he assumed at this point.
He was right. But it was still shocking to me that I thought we were pretending.
Yeah, we're done pretending.
That's sweet. That's sweet.
Yeah.
Kyle, what about you?
Yes, I mean, my parents were all in with Santa, but not in a weird way, not in a like we have to convince you, but it was like there was a mystery and joy that I can kind of go back to my first, second grade self. Mm-hmm. And even right now, I remember one point, there's you have those debates when I was in public elementary school, and you have debates with kids that early. Is Santa real? Is Santa not real? And I remember being like, well, I'll tell you for sure Santa's real. And I'll tell you, and I said, I went to this event at our country club. And I said, and when Santa gave me a gift, he gave me the Waldo book that I had asked for. Well, of course, I later find out my parents, they bring the gift that they know. So it's like, hold on. But there was all those like little things. I was like,
proof right there.
That's proof. I was like, in my first grade brain, I was like, Santa is real. And so I just, very magical. I mean, there was nothing like, and we can talk about all the reasons that people are, and I understand them, why people go away from Santa. But there was nothing like being in first or second grade, coming downstairs, the Christmas tree is full, and there's a wonder and an awe of what happened. But you start asking questions when you're little. Even you thought like, well, if Santa's real, then why are there poor people? I'm not that sophisticated, or if Santa's real, why do rich kids have better Christmases than poor kids? Like so you ask some of those questions even when you're little. But I have only good memories. I didn't have any. So just to go in, we'll probably jump into this, but I think one of the reasons, there's multiple reasons that the two that come into my head of why would someone just say we're not going to do Santa at all. One would be I just don't want to take the spotlight off Christ, and and we can talk about that. And the second would be some version of I don't want to lie to my kids.
Yeah.
But I never had the experience with my family. Like when I finally found out, I was like, you goofball, like you got
like
me.
I
wasn't thinking my parents are liars and I can never trust them. I thought I was old enough to realize my parents love me. We were playing a very sophisticated, fun game for little kids.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And and they were having as much fun with it, or maybe more than I was.
Yeah.
That's kind of my adult self. Now I look back and see that.
Did you, when the kids were younger, or even now, did you guys do Santa Claus? Like, how did you?
I would say it was similar to what I think we ran the kind of middle play of we did not, full out just, say we're not doing Santa, no Santa stuff. But we didn't embrace it, especially, it's kind of strange, the way that I look at it now. With my two older kids, and maybe this is, what number were you in your family? Were you younger?
I was third.
Third. Okay, well, with my two older kids, we were more like, probably didn't do as much of the wonder and mystery of Christmas in regards to Santa. Mm-hmm. I think as they got a little bit older, and Elon was still young,
they wanted to
do it with him. So, but we weren't against it. So he probably got a little bit more of that experience than the two older ones do. I think there's part of me, like you said, I think there's freedom in this. If I could go back, and Margaret, I've not even talked about this at great depth, but if I could go back, I might have done a little bit more Santa stuff, which is maybe not what people would think. Mm-hmm. But I think I was so, as a new dad, as a person who was trying to put Christ in the center, I think potentially, and my kids aren't bitter or resentful about it, I think potentially I pushed away some of that fun that we could have had for a short season. Because, it's such a short season.
Yeah.
It's like maybe age 3 or 4 to like 8.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm saying they're awake and aware enough to even go, that's 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And then to where they, depending on who they're around, who they're talking to, you're talking about a 4-year, 5-year period.
Yeah.
And I lost some of the magic in that moment. But in general, my kids love Christmas. And we'll joke. I mean, Margie and I will still address some of the packages, from Saint Nick, from the big man in the red suit. We all play with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
How have you, growing up the way that you grew up and then with your family now, how have you guys addressed it? And we'll get into some more of the things that we do to keep Christ central later. I'm just curious how you've handled that conversation.
So we would often do the same thing where we would write Santa. The presents on Christmas morning were from Santa. We even had some years where we'd set out the presents unwrapped, which is how I grew up.
Oh, that's sweet.
The presents from Santa were like displayed, unwrapped. Like you came out and they're just like, there's toys there. So that was really fun. We did that a few times. I think taking, the reasons why not to one extra level, especially the lying part, is I like the age range you gave because they get to the point where they ask good questions that you can't answer without just, I'm lying to you right now.
Yeah.
And when they ask those questions and, like in some of the songs, it's like, he sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good. So now we have the omnipotent judge Santa. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Or the omnipresent.
He has God. That's another danger. He has God-like characteristics.
Yeah, and it's just like, at that point, you just kind of go, we're not going to keep pushing this.
Yeah.
It's just,
because
it's too much like, we are worshiping Christ.
That's a great point.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
we also believe in mercy and grace, not you're going to get your presents if you're good. It's just so anyway. Like you said, I like that when they're little. It's just like we're all just pretending, and they don't even know the difference between the cartoons and stuff anyway.
Yeah.
But then as soon as they start asking the good questions, and like my dad did, well, what do you think? And they're like, well,
asking
it doesn't really make sense, and you're like, that makes sense, and you're just helping them. You just help them out of it in a nice way, but never. We just never for us. Yeah, we just never argued and tried to set things up to convince them and all that. We just kind of let it happen.
That's cool. Good. So it sounds like you guys both kind of decided we want some of the magic and the wonder, and when they're ready, we're not going to lie to them about it.
For me, another. I don't know how you could do this, but we will still have multiple different types of Christmas song list. So we have it's funny how on Spotify or on iTunes, whatever it's called, I'll type in Christian Christmas music and it knows what I mean. It's like, well, here's a playlist and it's Oh Come O Come Emmanuel and it's Holy Night and it's and my kids know those songs and we play those songs. But then, we do the rocking around the Christmas tree, that reminds them of Home Alone. And so we've tried to mingle both of those. And my kids probably like certain parts of certain Christian songs that are Christmas oriented and other ones that we maybe put in the category of more secular.
Well, before we move on, let's talk about some of the other approaches that families take, because I know you guys have probably had plenty of conversations over the years with different dads and moms about how they do it with their families. What are some other ways we see families handling Christmas as far as it comes to what they do with Santa or don't do with Santa?
Have you seen anything unique?
I guess I have every once in a while run into families who are just completely no. I mean, I remember I ran into a family one time that just wouldn't do Christmas at all. Like nothing commercial. Like it's just like, oh yeah, we'll celebrate Jesus, but nothing that looks like American Christmas.
Yeah.
But that was very rare.
Yeah.
I didn't run into that, and I hadn't run into too many people who are just like no Santa decorations, nothing.
Yeah, Santa and Satan have the same letters.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's kind of
not too much. I mean, I haven't had too much of that. There are definitely those folks, and especially family members who do claim to know the Lord, who are just like, we have to keep convincing them. And it's almost like a codependence thing. Like the parents needed the kids
to believe
so that they kept having
it's
just so they could vicariously live their Christmas experience through their children.
Yeah. And so that just got weird and awkward. And that's one of the things, as we mentioned we might talk about is when our kids, who probably earlier didn't believe in Santa, and then we go to family.
Yeah, how did you handle that?
You have to have that conversation.
Oh man, and so
because they want to tell everyone how smart they are and what they know.
That's right. And I think we try to just say, kids, it is not your job to tell anybody else what you think about Santa.
Remember how fun it was when you believed in Santa? It's not your job to take that from somebody
And
else.
what was awkward is there were older cousins who believed older than our kids, and
That
they're
is
like,
awkward.
come on, guys. Like, what?
Yeah.
And so we did have at least one or two things where the cousin comes crying to, Aunt so-and-so, he said there's no Santa. And so we had to gather up the kids again. It's like, look, we just let them do their thing.
There's a certain age where it's cruel not to tell your kids that Santa's not real. I mean, it's like
but it's
Santa
not our
Claus
job.
where his classmates are like, people are like laughing at him because he believes his dad is Santa.
So, but I just told our kids, it's not your job. Yeah. The parents will handle it.
Yeah.
So just let them, just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And so that's what we had to do so that it wasn't a thing.
To me, the categories, and I didn't come up with these. I got these from somebody else, and they're fairly common now. But I think the categories of redeem, receive, reject, which we've talked about many times, that can be applied to, any area. I would say Christmas, within reason, is in the area of Christian conscience, Christian freedom, which Paul talks about in places like Romans 14, I believe it is. And so I think what we're saying is it's hard, like if you take Halloween, I would say
also the way that you say that. Can we just stop?
Sorry.
And honor that you call it Halloween.
That's
it's his accent.
I think
it's
that's
not intentional.
Sorry, Halloween.
He's meaning Halloween.
I mean Halloween. Sorry. But basically, we can go to Christmas, but Halloween, is a good example of this. In the sense that I think people would say with that holiday in October, that you cannot fully receive it the way the culture would receive it. To me, not that anyone's asking, but I don't think, for example, you shouldn't be celebrating death. It's anti-Christian. When I see people like with rest in peace signs in their yard and skeletons everywhere, I'm like, okay, we're celebrating death. And then, you shouldn't use it as an excuse to dress inappropriately, which a lot of particularly women do. So, I think it's a little less clear with Christmas stuff, but I think, there's certain people who would say, for various reasons, I'm just going to reject it. I think that what we're saying is it's hard to fully receive it with all of its pomp and circumstance. But I think my humble advice would be that I think parents need to think critically about how to redeem it within bounds of freedom with their kids and their age, with their convictions. And it's very hard. I wish it was as easy as, okay, we got rid of Santa and now it's easy to put Christ at the center. I still think it's hard. We can get there. I still think it's hard to put Christ at the center, partly because that's so familiar to our families many times. It's a story we've been telling all year. And sometimes we don't have all of the traditions and all the special symbols that we do when we break the tree out, when we put the lights up, when we hang the stockings, when we make the cookies, when we watch the movies. So much of that, not in a bad way, but is just pointing us to a certain the 25 days of Christmas kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think of some other. Go ahead, Matthew.
One more thing on Santa was that once we get to the point where the kids that we have have moved past that, then it's always fun also to go back to the history of St. Nicholas, which we've done, and tell the actual story.
Yes, that's great.
Which is very inspiring.
Yeah.
As in the lines of generosity and caring for people in need and all of that. So that's another.
A lot of families
that's another thing to bring up, just to say, well, we have this tradition for a reason, and we are celebrating a virtue and a value that's important.
And I think, I may be incorrect. I think there are some specific traditions with St. Nicholas that even families take part in that I've heard of. Or then, we have other staff members. I wish I could remember. You know what? I'm going to do something we never do, and you're not going to be able to hear him. But Zach, what? Don't you put? Is he in here? No. He's not in here. He grew up as a missionary kid overseas in Belgium, and there's just unique traditions from there that they've carried back from their family.
That's so sweet.
And I wish I could remember what it is right now, but I can't. Another staff member I was talking to the other day is like, we treat Santa like a character, and that's how they never made a big deal of Santa when they have talked about it. It's like he's just like these, like Batman or the character on TV, and that's how they handle it in their family. There's lots of different ways that it can be done.
Yeah, and I think we maybe talked about this on a previous podcast 1 or 2 weeks ago, but I also just think giving your kids, trying to connect some of the cultural things that we do as Americans that we don't even realize that are Christian, like about Christmas. For example, hey guys, the reason that we give gifts at Christmas, because there are some parents on an extreme that would say, we're not even going to give gifts. It's like, well, as far as I understand it, Christmas is about God giving the best gift he ever could give. And that's why I tell my kids, why would we not give each other great gifts at Christmas? Not because we're consumeristic and materialistic, but because God gave the best gift. So why wouldn't we give the best gift? And Jesus said, I was talking to my kids about this the other night. I was like, hey guys, when Jesus says, is it not more blessed to give than receive? I said, yeah, honestly guys, isn't that true? Don't we all have that one gift at Christmas that we're actually more excited about somebody else opening than any gift that we're going to get? And I think a kid can feel that.
Well, that's great. What I love about that is like Jesus told stories and parables to help people understand principles from Scripture. And what you just did there is take something as simple as giving a gift and do the same thing with that.
Yes.
Just address like actual, like what we believe and what we see.
Well, you think about even the theme of, I don't think we talked about this, but the theme of light and darkness is very much, it's like, why do we take an evergreen tree? Do you know why we take an evergreen tree?
No,
it's
why?
like, well, because it's the deadest part of the year and we take the greenest thing and we bring it inside. It's like there's life in the midst of death. We light candles. Why do we put lights everywhere? Well, because it's the darkest time of the year and the light shines at the darkest. So there's all of these things, and I don't mean to do revisionist history, but there are symbolic things that we can take from the moment and go, guys, look at this. Like you love Tanglewood lights. Like the story of Christianity is the story of light and darkness. And isn't this a beautiful picture of light in the midst of darkness? And so I think there are ways that we can, you don't have to be a deep theologian just to go, man, why are we doing some of these things? And are there gospel biblical truths that we can, it's the old Tim Keller thing. What do I already believe? Okay, that's true. Great. Let me hook the Bible onto that and show you how that actually comes from a uniquely Christian worldview.
Yeah,
and sometimes that goes with what you said about redeeming something in the sense of, it may even be that I'm looking at a tradition and go, I don't even know why that came to be.
Yeah.
But here's what it reminds me of.
There you go.
That's
today.
great.
So I'm redeeming it, and I'm not acting like I know where it came from. But man, it sure fits.
Yeah,
what
and
we believe,
people will do the digging through all this pagan tradition started this, and I can't. It's just I don't have the time to.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things that we do that we don't even think about that probably come from like non-Christian roots. It's like, what are we doing with what we've been given?
I agree. I think it's the principle. I learned this in Christian ethics in seminary. It's been a long time, but I think it's called second order morality, which is like my professor was telling us, you're not responsible for second order morality. Second order morality is like, how is everything I'm doing affecting 10 things it's like I'm not directly connected to? Like, again, this is a whole nother conversation, but people, well, what if I bought this and it was made here in another country and then it's like, too many things for you to be responsible for.
Yeah.
So in the same way, I don't know that I can, and I know you're not saying this, I don't think that we can be responsible for, well, hold on, what you're doing 2,000 years later, I want you to know that in 1500, the way that lights were, it's like second order. For me and my family, Joshua 24, you choose, but me and my family, we're using Christmas to serve the Lord and we're redeeming these things. Sure, there are certain things that probably, none that I can think of right now with Christmas, but there are certain things that you probably can't redeem, obviously.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, I think Christians can get creative enough.
Yeah.
And to the pure, all things are pure. I really think that.
That's good. Well, let's talk about that, guys. So we've talked a lot about this already, but how has your family chosen to address and balance kind of the more commercialized aspects of Christmas with the more spiritual aspects of Christmas? Like, how have you addressed that with your families?
Can you ask a more specific?
Yeah,
not that that's a bad question. What do you mean by like commercial?
Like, what does it look like to
presents?
embrace some of the things like presents or like we talked about Santa a lot. We don't have to go into that. Santa or different holiday music and just all the things that happen this time of year, the Christmas tree, all those traditions. At the same time with like, what is this season really about? And that's the birth of Christ. Like how do you blend those things in your families?
Mm-hmm. I kind of like what you said where music being an example of it's all just mixed up at our house.
Yeah.
We're listening to White Christmas. We're listening to Oh Come All You Faithful all at the same time. And so, and I think it's like regular life.
That's well said.
Because we're doing all sorts of things all the time that aren't necessarily
quote unquote Christian.
This is a Christian thing. And so there's all sorts of decorations and fun and things that we do that aren't like, this is why this is about Christ. Well, that's not how we live our lives. The question is, are we worshiping Christ in our hearts, in our minds, and in the context of all the things that we're doing? And so it's not kind of like you're saying, it's not like we're trying to divide this out. Well, here's the secular part, and here's the important thing is, just like in regular life.
Yeah.
Where is my heart? You know, going back to the gifts, one of the things that just caused me to remember that we talk about with gifts, we give each other gifts and all that. But one of the things that I have done myself and that I encourage my kids to do every year is, isn't it strange that we're giving each other gifts on Jesus's birthday? So what could we give him?
Oh, I love that.
And so there's
That's
a
deep.
question of, and it's, don't answer now. It's like, let's think and pray about this as we come up to Christmas.
That's good.
What have been some other things that maybe have come to mind?
And, you know, it's interesting. As you've mentioned, you know, even as you preach and stuff, and you ask people, what is a step of obedience, or what is a surrender point for you?
Yes.
You kind of already know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, he's already, if you're in the Word and you kind of already know, this I kind of know. But you give some space and time and say, there is a way that you can surrender your life even more to Christ. There's a step of obedience that's just like a gift. It's a sacrifice
That's so sweet.
of worship
That's good.
and praise. And you give him something that's
love
from
that.
you that you can give that honors him.
Yeah.
And sometimes we say, hey, let's share those. And sometimes it's probably, you know, you can just give it to him without telling us. But it's something we talk about and pray about, and then hopefully even share, like, this is how I'm moving toward Christ this Christmas for his birthday.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so special.
That's really good. I mean, again, I'm just thinking through the eyes of the lens of my stage of life with my family. So this is that I can remember. Really, the first year where our oldest, again, she's going to be 13. She's thinking about presents for all of her friends.
Yeah.
So I would say that I think that, not that we do this perfectly, but I'm like, man, okay, this is a new season. This is the first time she's like has her own money. She's babysitting now. She's trying to figure out, how much do I spend on a present? What are they going to get me? You know, we're going in on this gift. How do I think about all this? The other day I took her to the store to go, you know. And so I think there's all these other teaching and coachable moments that aren't uniquely Christmassy or even
Christian.
Yes, specifically, but they're life discipleship moments that come up because so many things are connected this time of year, you know, relationships, money, you know, thoughts of the new year, finishing up school, all of those other issues. I think we've tried to do both, you know, so when it comes to just like kind of the fun Christmassy stuff, we do what I'm guessing many families who listening, watching this, you know, whether it's watch Home Alone 1 or Home Alone 2, we have to watch them both, you know, and that would include like making special food, and Addie loves to bake, and Margie will make some homemade hot chocolate, and we'll do some of that stuff. We love to watch the movie Spirited, which, you know, you and I have talked about this.
It is my absolute
Have you seen
favorite
Spirited?
now.
I think I have.
So it's on Apple TV, and it is. I mean, okay, you know, it may not be for everybody. I can't remember if there's anything.
There's probably some things.
Yeah,
that
there's
would be
probably
appropriate
something, but
for
like,
younger people.
yeah, it may be rated PG-13.
I mean,
but
it is like Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds.
yeah, but what's interesting, and I'm not going to spoil the whole movie for anybody, but it's an interesting movie about, along just being a great movie, well filmed, great actors, good singing. It's a story about a guy wondering to know if somebody is unredeemable. I mean, it's. I'm like, it's one of those moments where you watch the story and you go, are there like secretly Christians in Hollywood who wrote this? Because this is I could see someone doing you know, I would preach the Bible, not movies, but I could see someone preaching a sermon.
Yeah.
This is almost like a long parable Jesus would tell. So anyway, I sell that. So we have some movies. We do Tanglewood Lights, which is very, very special. We put the seats down in the back of our bigger car. We order pizza and bring it. We have snacks back there because, you know, if you ever done Tanglewood Lights, it's a multi-hour experience. You get that. So those are some of the more fun things that we do, and more just like generally Christmas spirit things. And then every year we've had at least one, what would you call it? Like devotion or thread. And I would say for years it's been the Jesse tree. So the first few years we had that. This year, believe it or not, what's that? You mentioned it, the Advent blocks?
Yeah.
What's that?
They're called Advent blocks. It's good kind.
Good kind. So a friend of ours, Clayton, who is one of the guys in the Summit Collaborative, he and his
wife.
Yeah, and they're in somebody else, because there's 4 names. Anyway, and another couple, they have this company, and they do Advent blocks. And that's been a nice variety this year, because we were doing our kids are getting a little bit, I think what I'm trying to figure out with my family, when they're, I'm making this up, when they're 3, 5, and 7, you can kind of take the most basic story and be like, look, an apple for Adam and As your kids get older, you're like, what's okay? So for me, it's more like we're talking about. I'm just trying to think. We're walking through the Advent blocks. Elon, who's 8, is more into turning the blocks, looking at them. William and Addie, almost 11, almost 13. I'm trying to go a little bit more into the story, or even just have, hey guys, what kind of tree do you think it was? Was it an apple tree? The Bible says a fruit. Then I joke with them. Have you guys ever been tempted by fruit your whole life? Yeah. Like no. So
some mangoes.
So just try to maybe some dried mangoes. So I think, and then honestly, to honor Zach again, he sent me a message yesterday or the day before, and was like, hey man, my favorite book to read when I was growing up as a kid during Christmas is called Cosmic Christmas by Max Lucado. Now, I have not read it. I ordered it. Unfortunately, it's not on Amazon Prime, so it's not getting here till mid-December. But I'm gonna still try to read it. He basically said, he said to me, your older kids will love it. It's the story of Christmas. Listen to this, from the angel's perspective.
That's sweet.
Cool. So I just thought that. So we have Margie does a great job. We're trying to put Christ at the center. I think having things at the church like we just had is very, very helpful. But I would say we're continuing to try to figure out ways to, I think I would just say at the end of the day, it's hard to be as intentional and creative personally with Christ-centeredness at Christmas, not making an excuse, because you have so many other easy resources to be Christmas-centered or Santa-centered or holiday season saturated. It's just so easy. It's like, well, here's all the songs, and here's all the movies, and here's all the clothes, and here's all the baking. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And here's all the ugly Christmas sweater parties.
And that's why we try to, with the Christmas project at church, that's one way of the church just trying to come alongside families and say, hey, we're going to have a day where we celebrate, where we remind ourselves. And it has a missional component too. The fact that they're creating this Mary and Joseph and Jesus to give to another family that's far from Christ with a gospel presentation on it. They given out an Advent guide almost every year to families that they can use that have been created by them in the church. And so we're trying to resource people as well. What are some things with your family? What are some of the blend of traditions, from the fun ones that Kyle was talking about to the more Advent focused ones? I don't know.
We did the Jesse tree different times as well. And we do like to set up the Advent wreath with the candles, and
neat.
Sometimes we forget, we didn't light it, but we have it set up, and we use different tools like the ones that have been shared with Two Cities, and to help emphasize those. One of the fun little traditions that we had when they were little that still hasn't gone away yet, we keep expecting it to, is one time we just kind of on impromptu said, we're going to read the Christmas story and you guys are going to act it out. And so they would run and get sheets and stick it over there, and run to get a baby, wrap the baby up. And so everybody was a character. And so they all just sat there, and I started reading. And as soon as I got to a character, I was like, okay, who's going to be Joseph? I'll do it. And so then they would get on the stage, and then I would read the lines and they would say them. And
this is the advantage of having 9 kids.
That's right.
You could have the whole Christmas story.
That's right. Everybody was there, even the angels and everybody.
Yeah.
And so it was so fun that, and that's how most of our traditions happen. They just happen, and then it's like, we're going to do that next year, or the next year they remember it and they say, we got to do the play. We got to do the play. And now we still do the play. And they're big. Most of them are big, and and they still do the play, and they love it, And so, it's fun, it's family, but it's also like, this is the story. This is what this is really about.
Yeah.
And then we have those traditions that popped up, unplanned, that stuck, which is way off now, going back to music. One time we were all sitting there, and Feliz Navidad comes up. And for some reason, 1 or 2 or 3 of us just get up and start dancing. And everybody gets up and start dancing.
I want to be around your family at the holidays.
And so it was just like the mosh pit in the middle of the living room. Everybody's having a great time with Feliz Navidad. Well, then every time that song comes back on.
Come on.
It's like
Everybody gets up. It's like, we got it.
party.
We have to.
That's
and
sweet.
so it's hilarious.
I love
Well, and
that.
I think you bring up a point of like, especially if your kids are younger, you can make something that seems very simple be very special. And
Yeah.
that's something that like, I've heard it. I forget. Someone was telling me like, if we were to see, for example, say you love the Rudolph movie or say you love The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. It's like, if you saw it for the first time at 32 years old, you'd be like, I don't like this. You'd be like, it's kind of, but the fact that you associate that Rudolph little, like, I mean, it's horribly filmed or whatever, that it's like, but we love it because it just reminds us, because we saw it when we were 8 years old. It's like someone told me that and this is an interesting thing to test out for yourself. Everybody's favorite music is the music they listened to in high school or college, because basically it helped to form your personality. And so you will rarely meet a person, whether they're 70 or 37, that their favorite preferred music isn't what they were listening to in high school and late early college. So what I'm trying to say is we have a unique ability by God's grace to help form our kids to love the Christ-centered part of Christmas, as well as just the fun. Like we're the type of family that we're together on Christmas.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. We don't have much time left, but as families grow and change, right? Like when you were just married or were still in the home, you would obviously have your family celebrations with your parents and their families, potentially, whatever that looked like for you, right? But as you get older and you start your own family, there's this feeling of we're kind of clinging to the past traditions. We feel a responsibility to them, but we're trying to make some of our own. How have you navigated that in your families?
Yeah. Would you want to go?
I think this is related to your question.
Go wherever you want.
But, one of the things that has changed is when you have a little smaller family or young kids, and going to grandma's house is kind of like going back home for Christmas or other, and then your kids get bigger and then there's more kids and there's more cousins. And then it's kind of like, well, we want to be home for Christmas.
Yeah.
And so we used to go, well, we have to be at grandma's house on Christmas morning to, and then we were like, well, this is our, we want to have our own Christmas. And so that was a hard shift and decision when we said and told them we're not coming, like we're having Christmas at our house. We're still coming Christmas Eve because that's the tradition, but then we're just having Christmas at our house.
Yeah.
And we'll call you and let you know.
Yeah.
So stuff. And so now I have two that are married, two more getting married, and now they have families.
Yeah.
So we're like, what? You're not coming for Thanksgiving because you're going to their house for Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
This is not, this is not okay. But then you realize all the families have to deal with this. And you have to figure out, okay, how are we going to handle it? And you just have to have a lot of flexibility and grace. And so one of the things that we've always done in our family for every holiday is we just move things. In other words, one of our big Christmas Eve traditions is not on Christmas Eve. It's on the 21st every year. And this year, that's when everyone will be at our house because Christmas Eve, we can't get everybody.
I get it.
And so
that's
the
smart.
21st, that's our Christmas Eve. And since we move it, we can get everybody there and do all of our traditions.
Oh, that's great.
And then
that's
later,
wise.
then we can be at other family events and do all of that kind of stuff.
That's good.
Yeah.
Kyle, what about you?
I don't even know if I could add anything.
Well, your
That's so,
families are so far apart, too. So what does that look like? You and Margie have families both in different states, not the same.
Yeah, for us, I mean, it's a similar story that you said, in the sense that once our kids got a certain age, we were very home-centric. Really, since I've been here, in part because Christmas Eve is such a big deal here at our church that, I mean, there's no way for me to miss it, and I wouldn't want to. So I'm in town on the 23rd and 24th every year anyway. So we try to make Christmas Eve that day and Christmas Day. Honestly, we've gone to my parents' house every Christmas. There's lots of reasons for that down in South Carolina. And then we usually have alternated Thanksgiving. And then we've got some other special trips kind of with each individual family. But yeah, I think as you were talking, it just was a reminder. And I think we talked about this again on a different episode. But just I would encourage families who are listening who maybe are more in my stage or your stage than Matthew's stage, is just you have such a short amount of time, no pressure, but you have such a short amount of time when all of your kids are going to be in the home.
Yeah.
You know, because like you said, they get the girlfriend, they get the husband or wife, they have what will be your grandkids, and you know, they have their own family. And so it's just a unique season. I'm grateful for the Christmases that I have left with my 3 kids.
Yeah, that's great. Well, as we're closing today, is there any last encouragement that you would give to parents who are hoping to create meaningful traditions and Christ-centered, faith-centered traditions in their home around Christmas?
Well, I think for me, I realized that in order for Christ to be the center of Christmas, like life, it just depends on whether he is that for me.
Amen.
That's good.
I mean, it's just the heart of whatever we're doing is whatever I'm bringing to it.
That's good.
And that's really important in the sense of it's not just, okay, we did all the Christmas stuff. Oh, yeah, we need to do something about Jesus. And then you're like, oh, well, let's throw in something about Jesus. Well, then
that communicates
that
something.
didn't come out of your heart, you know. And so to me, it's just I want to stay in a place of worship and wonder.
That's
and
good. That's really good.
Excitement, not just for Christmas, right? But that's what the kids see. Wow, Dad really loves Jesus. And this is the most important and real thing to us. Yeah, and there's all sorts of other awesome, fun things that we do that are just part of the joy of life, you know? And so I would say for parents, where's your heart? You know, what?
That's a great word.
Yeah.
Are you there? And then just have fun.
That's good.
You know, just have a great time with all the traditions and let them just pop up. Most of ours, like I said, just pop up out of stuff that happens and like, that was so fun. Let's do it every year.
Yeah, I love
And then
that.
after a while, it's like, let's stop doing that.
Let's never do that again.
And it's perfectly
That's how
fine.
it should be.
And it's fine because, you know, and some of it, and so every once in a while, there's a grandma or a mom especially who just can't get out of this is what we do. And that's fine. We just go, okay, well, if grandma wants to do that. But every once in a while, we just say, it's okay. Like, we're going to not do that anymore.
Yeah.
And so it's fresh, it's fun, but then keeping the things that are there all the time are great. So
that's great.
I couldn't say it any better, man. I just think at the end of the day, the principle from Scripture is that things are taught and things are caught, and sometimes the most important things are not taught; they're caught. And we teach what we know, but we multiply who we are, and so that's what we're trying to do this Christmas. Thanks for that word.
That's great. Well, with that, we're going to close, but you can catch us every week on Spotify now and Apple Podcasts, as well as YouTube with new episodes of Open Bible, Open Life. And we look forward to celebrating Christmas with you this season.